Welcome to this episode of Solved, plucked from deep in our archives. You may not realize we've actually been doing this show since way before it was called Solved and started being posted to YouTube, so this is good stuff. I also wanted to let you know that we're temporarily slowing down the pace of production for new episodes of Solved while we reorganize our processes here on the back end to get ourselves on better footing so that we can come back stronger than ever. You can help support us in this process as we hire additional help by becoming a member. Members get an extended version of Solved before YouTube, as well as ad-free versions of the Best of Left podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. So sign up at bestofleft.com/support. And now enjoy this throwback edition of Solved. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for listening and supporting the show. As always, as is often the case, the whole crew is with me. That's Amanda, Deon, and Erin. Offer a greeting if you feel so moved.
Hey there.
Hello.
What's up?
Oh, interesting. A little different. Still not hello, but definitely a greeting. Disclaimer at the top. We wanted to be clear that there are other things happening in the world that arguably deserve more of your anger than our topics today. And yet I think it's telling that I felt like now was a good time to tackle these issues because Amanda and I just had a short vacation that I hoped would actually fortify her and make her able to have this conversation without combusting. Recently, we had a conversation about Israeli settlers. And I think those people who actively want to commit genocide in Gaza are deserving of harsher condemnation than corporate executives and economists working on perfecting personalized pricing. Like, it shouldn't even be close between those. But again, it's like telling that it sort of feels like a close call. So late capitalism, it'll do that to you. We're starting with the article, Welcome to Pricing Hell. It sort of starts off, people maybe 10 years ago will have become familiar with the concept of surge pricing from Uber and how if lots and lots of people are using the Uber app, then the price goes up suddenly. And the idea, I guess, ostensibly is more drivers will get a notification and say, oh, I'd better go drive to help handle the load. So you can sort of understand the benefit of that mechanism, but it also has an icky feeling of, well, it's raining, so more people want cabs. So now cabs cost more because it's raining. And so there's just this inherent conflict. There's this stickiness between the economics and the human desire for fairness inherent in all of this. So the summation of this article says, previously self-contained products, toothbrushes, movies, Microsoft Word, have turned into subscriptions, while previously bundled items, Wi-Fi at hotels, meals on airplanes, are now sold separately. Buying stuff online means navigating a flurry of discount codes, often just expired. Meanwhile, prices are becoming more personalized as companies hoover up company data. And it even points out that people have worried about some form of dynamic pricing for a long time, saying that Plato was against variable pricing, saying, he who sells anything in the agora shall not ask two prices for that which he sells, but he shall ask one. Plato wrote in Laws. So this is a long-standing tension. We may be living through late capitalism, but there's nothing new under the sun. This is where I'll leave the introduction. There are two main ways that companies are messing with people. There's obfuscation, the breaking down of prices into components and then applying fees. So you start with a lower price, but then you have higher fees or higher shipping costs. With airlines or something, you get like luggage fees that used to be included or seat selection fees, which like no one had ever heard of 20 years ago. And the article says it was a win-win arrangement with both wins going to the airlines. And then the other element is discrimination, the charging of different prices to different customers at different times, otherwise known as personalized pricing. Basically, the attempt to find the highest possible price any particular individual is willing to pay. Who would like to yell first?
I'm telling you, everybody send the blood pressure medication because by the end of this, I think we will be in trouble. I don't even know where to start first, but I think that talking about how airlines have been doing dynamic pricing for a really long time, and I think a lot of people use that as the example of like, "Oh, it's been going on forever, what's the big deal?" Yeah, and it's miserable for the consumer. The game of trying to find the cheapest flight using 8 platforms to do it is gross, and it always has been, and it's getting worse. I know the argument is always, "Well, that way you can get a great deal." Like, if you just hunt around, like, and you really know all the tricks and ways to get a good deal, that's awesome. And I would just argue that your time on this planet is finite. Is this what you want to spend it doing? Bargain hunting? And that translates to all of the rest of it. That's not just the airlines. Do you want to spend your finite time on this planet hacking your way to a better deal? Because they want you to. The companies would like you to spend a lot of time trying to get a good deal.
Also, though, are you getting a good deal?
No.
In capitalism,
I know
we're
you're
all
not.
losers. We're never gonna pay a very fair price for something. These companies
Mhm.
are existing to maximize profit. So even if you spend all your time hunting the deal, just know that price is still not what you should pay for the flight or whatever it may be. And of course, it's banking on that not everyone is going to find that deal. So if someone slightly underpays, that of course means more people are going to overpay. But I, again, would say that even if you're the one that gets the bargain, you're not actually getting a bargain, or they would just list the price as is. Why have that level of deception behind the price?
The way it's described, especially with using your data to find the perfect personalized price, it's a modern take on an old problem. I used to work retail a long time ago, and every week we would put out new sale tags on the items, and often the sale price that we were putting out was higher than the price that was existing. So we were putting
Oh.
out deals that were higher than the existing price. So it's an old strategy. Companies are always trying to get as much money as possible. Like, the economists that defended this repeatedly said this is the best way to let suppliers know that we need to produce more product. And okay, that's fine. If that's the case, how come none of the profit from that goes to the people that are working? It all goes to shareholders. There is no surge pay for all the people that are working
Mhm.
in these industries. They don't get paid more. The company just makes more profit. The eclipse that just happened, all the hotels within the range somehow were more expensive. Why were they so much more expensive? Did the people that worked at the hotel get paid extra because they were doing more work, booking more people? Nope, they got paid exactly the same. The hotel chain made all the money. So this is never about supply and demand. It's about jacking up stock prices. That's the part that everybody's feeling. Like, our economy is completely disconnected from supply and demand and is completely connected to making the line go up for a very small percentage of the population.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's probably multiple things at work that sort of go hand in hand. And this article definitely drives home the point that economists, who are obviously sociopaths, are on the side of big business, but they aren't going to say it for the same reason as the business will. The business wants line go up. Economists have lots of flowery language that explains why it's actually like, hey, I'm not like working for that company. I don't own that company. I don't need them to make more profit. I just want society to work better, right? So it says in a classic 1986 study, researchers posed the following hypothetical to a random sample of people. Quote, a hardware store has been selling snow shovels for $15. The morning after a large snowstorm, the store raises the price to $20. 82% said this would be unfair. Compare that with a 2012 poll that asked a group of leading economists about a proposed Connecticut law that would prohibit charging unconscionably excessive prices during a severe weather event emergency. Only 3 out of 32 economists said the law should pass. Much more typical was the response of MIT's David Autor, who wrote, quote, it's generally efficient to use the price mechanism to allocate scarce goods, e.g., umbrellas on a rainy day. Banning this is unwise. So I had been reading this article last week or earlier this week sometime when our very own transcriptionist Ben told us, on the chat that he'd had a tornado come like through his neighborhood nearby. Power was out, trees were down. And so, I said what everyone was thinking, which is that I sure hope people will do right by the community and really jack up the price of the chainsaws and the heavy machinery needed to clear those trees so that the tools are allocated to those most in need with the greatest efficiency,
Yep.
because that's what we need in times of crisis.
Do you guys remember, I'm sure you do, the people who bought up a bunch of cleaning supplies and PPE at the start of the pandemic
Yeah.
and then started selling them for exorbitant prices? They got death threats. People don't like this. It's not a good thing. It's seen as morally bankrupt and disturbing.
On its face, it's ridiculous because it's not a good way to distribute it to those in need. It is a good way to distribute it to the person who has the most money. The people who have the most money can take the most things. And the higher you raise it, probably the person who's in most need is least likely to be able to afford it.
And speaking of that, I knew this was happening in lots of areas, but I didn't know this one. They mentioned that grocery stores have begun using digital displays to adjust prices on the fly. I've noticed the digital displays. I did not know they were adjusting prices on the fly. Lord help us all. That is sick. Food is an essential item. People are budgeting. You can't do that. Like, you morally cannot do that. Fuck these guys so hard. I just got so worked up reading this. It was enraging.
Well, I think Jay saying late capitalism is the key to understanding this. Completely valid and being frustrated because I agree, fuck them. But I think people have come to an understanding that there's going to be a ceiling. Like eventually there's going to be a point that there's no more money to be made. And what we're seeing is that capital is going to capital. So once you hit a ceiling, you just find different ways to continue to raise those profits. And I think this dynamic pricing is like a perfect example of that.
You just gave me a thought that I had not had before, which is exciting. You said capital is going to capital. And I thought, right. And so the inverse of that is that humans are going to human. And I was like, but what does that mean? I was like, well, up until now, humans have been showing their incredibly strong ability to adapt. The more capital fucks us, the more we say, well, that's how it is. I guess we just got to go along. Like, what are we going to do? And we adapt. But another part of humanity is that we absolutely fucking hate this. And there's got to be a breaking point somewhere. So continuing on this from the article, it says, to regular people, raising the price of something precisely when we need it the most is the definition of predatory behavior. To an economist, it's the height of rationality. And then this from an economist, people would support dynamic pricing if only they understood it. It's so obvious, he said. There was an example from Wendy's doing basically like surge pricing for fast food. It says, if Wendy's has the option to raise their prices when demand is high, then customers can also benefit from lower prices when demand is low. Great. I guess we should actually be rejoicing then because it's so fucking obvious. But what this economist is highlighting is the problem with fundamentally not understanding that human preference that goes beyond price also has value. Like our desire for fairness has value, but it doesn't get counted because no one knows how to count it, which is why one of my favorite folk protest songs is Not Everything That Counts Can Be Counted by Billy Bragg. It's so obvious that the market does not incorporate everything that people care about, but we use market ideas and money and price and consumption as stand-ins for what people want, what people are willing to pay, what people desire, but we're obviously not counting everything.
I feel like the phrase, it's not fair, sounds like a whiny child, unfortunately. But so much of the issues in our society, at the root of them, are it's not fair. And the injustice of it is because it's not fair. And really, what I'm saying is kids are geniuses and we need to follow their lead. But anyway, if you want to have a sale, have a sale. If you want to offer a dollar menu, offer a dollar menu. Do not make people pay less or more based on when they visit your food chain. We have more important shit to think about, and it's not fair. It's not fair when politicians get to invest and basically have inside information because of their job, right? It's not fair. And it's not fair in this sense. Like while we were reading this, I kept trying to think, what's a better, more intellectually articulate way to express my rage about this approach? And it just comes down to it's not fair. And I think that I've convinced myself that's good enough. I think I thought I had to be more high-minded, but I think that's good enough.
The premise of this article was that the guy who put out the information about Wendy's potentially doing the surge pricing didn't think it was that big a deal. It was just a short little blog post, and it took off because of this sense right here that that's not fair. Like, who is this going to affect the most? Like, who's going to Wendy's? Is it rich people going to Wendy's, or is it people who are trying to buy quick, cheap meals? So it's going to affect people who probably have the least amount of money. Poor people generally spend more on fast food because at the moment it is the cheapest option. Over time it's not, but they don't have the money to pay for the overtime stuff because everything in this country is already rigged in the favor of the rich, that over time poor people spend more money on everything already costs more, so we're going to add more to that. It's already not fair, so adding another layer to this not fair that we're all feeling is going to start pushing people. And I mean, we're seeing it. We're seeing it all over in different ways, kind of happening, bubbling up, this sense of not fairness. And I think hopefully the positive of that would be like everyone realizes we need to organize together in unions over different industries so that we as a group can combat this sense of not fair. Because right now, there is a class war going on. And as Warren Buffett has said a long time ago, we're winning. The rich are winning this war.
If we were to just ask like a random group of people in the US to think of what is the worst buying experience, the traditionally worst buying experience that people hate the most, I feel like at least 2/3 would say buying a car. It's a trope. It's a meme. It goes way back. People have hated buying cars forever. So again, economists sort of show their hand with this part of the article. It says, consumers pay a personalized price every time they buy a car from a salesperson who's likely sizing them up based on the car they already drive, what they're wearing, how they talk, and other factors. Data-driven personalized pricing merely automates that process, turning more and more transactions into miniature versions of going to a car dealership, which, again, economists seem to believe is a point in its favor, which was one of our favorite lines because
So good.
the article writer is obviously showing their opinion in some fun and subtle ways. But like going to a car dealership is nightmarish because it's unfair, and like not just because of price, right? There's a complete mismatch in information. Markets are supposed to function on information being available and then everyone making their pricing decisions based on the available information. But the way, I mean, the primary way, and it's only getting worse in surveillance capitalism, the primary way for corporations to tilt that balance in their favor is that they have so much more information than the consumer does. And so then they can trick people. I mean, just like Deon putting sales stickers on clothes in a physical establishment, Deon and the company knows that the sale price is higher than the price that they're replacing, but the customer doesn't know that. So they go in and they see the sale price, they do the calculation. Okay, it must have been higher than this before, but they're wrong. They're basically being lied to, but they don't know that. I've heard of that trick before. I don't know where Deon worked, but like a store like Macy's or a JCPenney or something like that.
It was Macy's.
Oh, it was. Okay. So, they'll like jack up the price by 200% for one day so that when they put it on sale at 50% off and it goes back to the exact same price it was 2 days prior, they're technically not lying. They are lying, but they can't be sued for it because they could show the paper trail that says, no, look, we raised the price. We doubled the price and then we cut it in half. It's on sale. And it's that information mismatch, which is so prevalent at car dealerships. People hardly ever buy cars. They hardly know how cars work. And then you're entered into the situation where you're expected to haggle. And the car dealership and the salespeople know everything about cars and about how to extract the most money out of people who are clueless about what they're buying. And so the unfairness is like, let's say maybe you get out of a car dealership having paid an okay price for a car. That's not the definition of fairness. You've still gone through an unfair experience, which was miserable because of the unfairness in that mismatch in power and information.
Yeah, that was one of the worst examples, but they gave other examples too where they oh man, economists drive me nuts. They're like, "You're already doing this. What's the big deal?" Like, it's sort of how they approach this whole thing. Like, university tuition, students who need financial aid, they're getting a different price. "Oh, yeah?" And the writer got into this, thankfully. First of all, financial aid comes with work study or some other investment of time. You don't just get a nice little discount because the school was being super generous, because those students are likely to have jobs while in school too to pay the tuition they need to pay. And what they pointed out was the parents of these students, it's a low income student, their parents, the focus is so much more on like, how do I get my kid to college, and less on like, am I getting a good fair deal here? Whereas students who have a little more money but are still applying for aid, they often get better deals because their families are coming from backgrounds where they're more familiar with this kind of thing. Again, it is about information, right? They can't actually do something fair across the board. The other example that they were holding up because, someone did a study that Uber surge pricing is great because what if someone like needed to get to the hospital? Well, they need more cars on the road to be able to make sure they get a car. In America, where you have to get an Uber to the hospital because you can't afford an ambulance, yeah, that's great. I can just so easily poke holes in every single one of their stupid examples. Also, I don't give a shit if this happens already in some ways. It shouldn't happen. That's the argument.
I'm curious. We're getting ready to head into June. We're halfway through May, and it's Pride Month, which means all the corporations are going to come out with their bullshit about how much they care, how they're part of the community, and woohoo, look at us and our initiatives. Is stuff like this finally going to break that thought that people have that companies actually have some obligation, some kind of equal loyalty? There are certain car brands, for instance, that people ride very hard for. They're all about it, Jeep Life, Subaru even has the family Pride Month, woohoo. But with that, like, Subaru doesn't care about you. Jeep doesn't care about you. They're not gonna do things like be transparent with their prices and make sure that everybody's getting a fair deal instead of a good deal. I think we're finally getting to a moment late in capitalism that people are gonna stop acting like companies have some kind of personhood. We're really good at putting human traits on things that aren't exactly human. And even though companies are run by humans, like, they don't have the same goals as we do. So I think being able to see through this, being able to see like the unfairness and kind of behind the curtain, especially I think Amazon is one of those. They didn't specifically name who was doing the different prices for everyone, but Amazon, I know that how they market you, which brands come up first for you and things like that are dictated by what you're willing to spend. And why wouldn't it be? Again, if you're just trying to maximize profits, like what else do we expect of companies other than to do what they say they're doing? Maybe we just believe them this time.
And that's the old saying, information is power. That's what makes this even more unfair, is because we're in a situation where companies have never known more about their customers than they have right now. They know more about everything that we do than probably people in your lives. So of course they have an advantage. And I think there's a lot of, like I was alluding to earlier, a lot of backlash. There's one specific one that's kind of going on TikTok right now where there's this block celebrities campaign where it's not very well directed. There's kind of vague motivations for it. But what I kind of interpreting is that people are starting to think that maybe celebrities don't really give a shit about you and maybe you shouldn't give a shit about them, which is great, but extend that. Celebrities are the face of a lot of products. Extend it to the companies. And we don't have a lot of power in this situation, but that vote with your dollar thing is real. And as much as we're able, we should really start doing that more, because the only thing these companies actually care about is getting money. And if we start withholding money, maybe we can make some demands about what they do with our data, how they sell us things, just their practices in general, because right now we don't have much say so at all.
Nope, you're wrong. Fuck individual action. It's not going to work. We need regulation. There's no other way. Maybe voting with your dollars is like the gateway drug to political action or something. But
it's not just an individual thing, but I'm talking about like a collective action.
Yeah, like a
we are
boycott or
organized.
something.
Yeah, like boycotts work.
Right. If you're voting with your dollars as part of a well-publicized boycott.
Yeah. And that's the problem with the TikTok thing, is it is an individual scattershot thing. It is not organized. But if it becomes something that is more organized, absolutely it could work.
Couple final points on this article. I just wanted to highlight another of the positives, right? We've been talking about all about the negatives and what people hate, but I just enjoyed this because it is pointing to a thing humans actively enjoy. And it says, the closer we get to personalized pricing, the more we inhabit a world in which everything in life is like paying for beer at the Super Bowl. Everything's at your maximum willingness to pay. There's a joy, or in economic terms, a utility in paying less for something than you might have. In that model, you get none of it. And I thought, like, yeah, people love getting a discount, which is why Macy's tricks people into thinking things are on sale, because there's a personal utility to feeling like you got a good deal. But of course, you're just being tricked into that good deal. But if we move away from personalized pricing, move away. If we ban personalized pricing, then every once in a while you'll get something for less than you would have paid. And you're like, oh, good. I would have paid more for that, but this is what it's worth to the company to sell it. And then finally, they go on to make the argument about the need for political action and this being a collective action problem because it's the model. Like once it becomes popular enough, there's no getting away from it, right? It's like, well, just everyone's going to do it. So who do you avoid? So it's a collective action problem because some corporations actually have tried doing like upfront pricing as a marketing tool to show themselves to be like the good company you want to do business with. Like, look how good we are. Our pricing is up front. And then they lost money, of course. So they had to switch and they went back to the more personalized pricing. So sort of the crux of the problem is that people don't understand the connection between their personal data online and personalized pricing.
Yeah.
So it says, getting Americans fired up about their personal data has been notoriously difficult, which helps explain why we still have no federal digital privacy law. Perhaps if more voters understood that strong privacy protections would also protect them from price discrimination, Congress would feel more pressure to get something done. So that's obviously the direction we need to go.
So I think the link here that maybe we haven't just said out loud yet is the way that companies are getting that information. I mean, there's plenty of different ways, but one of the things the article points out is, quote, "Why do you think every brand suddenly has an app? Because if you download the Starbucks app, the company can access your address book, financial information, browsing history, purchase history, location, not just where you live, but everywhere you go, and audio information if you use their voice ordering function. All those data points can be fed into machine learning algorithms to generate a portrait of you and your willingness to pay. In return, you get occasional discounts and a free drink on your birthday." I thought that was written so well. But again, I don't think we've really said that it is hyper personalized pricing is more how I would frame it. You as an individual customer and everything about you goes into what price you see when you go to buy something.
So the other small piece of hope, not so much with the personalized pricing, but with the other element of fees and whatnot, is just the fact that the Wall Street Journal wrote the article, the gap between the price you see and what you pay is getting worse. And it just lists example after example of people describing the fees that they've paid and the extent to which they are incandescent with rage about it. I just find that good. It's like if the Wall Street Journal is writing that, there's clearly some cross politics, widespread anger at all of this. And so maybe something can get done. I talked about how some people have even decided to I guess to Deon's point, some people have decided to shop based on flat rates rather than lowest rates just to avoid getting burned again. So as much as I don't think individual action is the path to political success, but it can be related, these people are like, they understand the mental cost to them for having expected to pay one price and then get nickel and dimed with, fees and whatever else. And so they're like, we might end up paying a little bit more, but we'll save on the mental energy. And people doing that in terms of individual action for your own mental health, yeah, do that. Do the thing that costs you less of your precious finite time on this earth and mental energy and emotional labor dealing with corporations.
I thought the food delivery was just a very good example. Like, I don't often order food delivery from a place that doesn't already have delivery. I know everyone else in the world does. I guess we're weird that way. We sometimes do, but it's only if like we just feel like we absolutely have to because of that. It's so expensive. And I know people who do this much more frequently, and I'm just like, you are just shelling out money. As one of the people in the article says, the fees wind up being equivalent to half of what the actual order will be, to the point where I sometimes cancel the order. I've definitely felt that before, where I was just like, oh, forget it. I thought I was getting a little treat for myself, and now it's like a luxury item. I can't justify it.
And to connect this back to the car wash that we talked about in the last show, things like DoorDash, there's a pass that supposedly reduces these fees and the delivery, which I imagine their structure is very similar to the car wash and the membership, that anyone who overuse and actually gets their money worth of that is worth it, because there's lots of months that people underuse it or don't get, quote, their money's worth. A company wouldn't offer that if there wasn't some benefit to them. And I think with food delivery specifically, I know a lot of people who brag about, oh, well, we have I forget what the actual membership is called, whatever. We have the door pass, whatever. Weird flex, and also like you have to use it to make it worth it. So you're shelling out a bunch of money, because even food pricing on there, like we would call an order versus ordering on DoorDash, because even if you're picking up, the price is still different because you're using an app. So definitely a cautionary tale.
So if you were concerned that it was just pricing where you were going to have problems with corporations, we can put those fears to the rest with this next article, Welcome to the Golden Age of User Hostility. And this is all about how too often and ever more the relationship between yourself and something you have purchased may change, sometimes fundamentally, long after the actual purchase has been made. So they just give this one little example of a Roku brand TV having been purchased that then pops up with a little accept our new terms and conditions that now forces you into forced arbitration with the company, which, like, when I read that, I was just shocked that that wasn't already their policy. I was like, how is that a new change that they're making? But, we don't have time to get into forced arbitration and what's terrible about that. It just means you don't get to access the court system as the founders intended when something goes wrong. But, your TV is basically a giant brick until you agree to those new terms and conditions. And it's just a little window into like, well, wait a second. Like, I bought this years ago. How am I suddenly not able to use this thing anymore? How is the company still able to like reach inside my home and control this device? Like, I thought we had an agreement. Like, I paid for it and now I own it. No, you don't really exactly. And so it comes down to the fact that we used to divide things between things that you would pay for with money and things like, free internet services like Facebook that you pay for with your data. And now it just turns out you pay for most things with both. So it says the slow surveillance colonization of everyday electronics was normalized by free internet services, which conditioned people to the mentality that our personal information is the actual cost of doing business. The TVs got cheaper, and now we pay with our data. Not only is that a bad deal, it fundamentally should not apply to hardware and software that people purchase with money. So, like, I'll go ahead and dump on Roku. Roku seems shitty to us. Like, we don't have Roku, but my parents do. And when I see it, I think, this seems like a really shitty experience. Why is this so bad? And the answer, I think, is pretty much summed up here. The company lost $44 million on its physical devices last year, but made almost $1.6 billion with its ads and services products. It turns out that Roku is actually an advertising company, much like, say, Google and Meta. And marketing depends on captive audiences, commercial breaks, billboards you can't help but see on the highway, and so on.
There was a almost diabolical little nugget in there about what they're trying to do. Like they have a patent out for a HDMI port that even if you're not using the Roku TV for streaming and you plug in a DVD player or your PlayStation or whatever, they could still interject ads into that. They said in the article it may not come to fruition, it may not be something they ever make, but that's how far they're thinking. They're thinking that even if you want to use something that you have that is separate from the product that they have, they're still going to show you ads. And I have been on a little personal mission to start buying up games and movies, old games and movies I like in actual physical copies, because you can see it with it just got announced the other day that it's like Netflix and Max and some other company are going to be a bundle that you can purchase. And I think it's Disney actually. And then on Comcast, there's the other three major streamings are going to be other cable companies. So we're going full circle into cable's going to be a thing of the past. We're going to kill cable and we're going to become cable and have not just what cable had, where you have to watch the ads, but also you have to watch the ads and we're going to steal every bit of information about you at the same time. So if that's the future we're going into, maybe it's time to pull back. And this free model of entertainment clearly isn't free. And we should maybe pay for physical pieces of the media that we like, because it's only going to get worse as they consolidate further and further. I mean, the way it's set up, it's basically two companies now. Eventually it's going to be one. And like Jay said, regulation is absolutely needed. Somehow, some way, there has to be some sort of like antitrust, anti-monopoly legislation put on these companies, because they just keep getting bigger and bigger and offering less and less, meanwhile taking more and more. And the only way out right now that I see is an individual action to just unplug. And I don't know how viable that is for everyone, but what is the benefit? How much do you benefit by watching these shows and being part of the product at the same time? How much more can we take of this? And the fairness thing, if you're already paying money, you should not also be part of the product. That just seems wrong. So the end point of all this is like, it's coming closer and closer. What are we going to do about it? I have no idea, but I think I'm opting out is my next plan.
You sound like a digital prepper.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, though.
Yeah. Are you stocking up on printer cartridges too?
Oh, I'm not printing anything for anybody.
Fair enough. That's one of the next stories coming up, is just the real quick version of it. We don't even have to go into detail. Is Atlantic writer buys a printer, signs up for automatic ink delivery subscription, which sounds like a terrible idea to begin with. Doesn't realize, though, that those ink cartridges only work as long as the subscription is active. There's a literal chip inside those cartridges that talks to the printer, and the printer is connected to the internet, and the whole system knows if your personal subscription is active. So this person has no idea that the printer can be effectively bricked remotely by the company if their ink subscription is canceled. And they say that standard cartridges that you just buy at the store should still work. But if you have a carton full of leftover cartridges purchased through the subscription, they're literally useless. They cannot be used unless you reactivate your monthly subscription that you don't need. So again, like you're buying a thing, you have it, it's a physical object in your house, but the company can reach into your home and disable it remotely. Digital prepping. I guess that's the new trend.
Can I just vent for just 1 second about the part that made me exclaim out loud? I was reading this, and it's not gonna sound that over the top, but it made me so angry. Roku offers, a remote control app for smartphones, and in a Reddit post last month, a user attached a screenshot of a subtle ad module that the company inserted into the app well after launch, gently enshittifying. This is referencing the enshittification that we talked about a couple months ago. Enshittification of life, basically. Gently enshittifying the simple act of navigating your television screen. And I had this like visceral reaction because for a while now, I've been very consciously aware of how much advertising is in my sight line all the time and how hard it is to get away from it. And when you insert an ad into something that is so just functional and utilitarian, like it made my blood pressure spike. I was fucking enraged. And I loved what people, and I think this is what the headline of the article was getting. I love that people's reactions because they posted this online and said, just wait until we have to sit through a 1-minute video ad before we can use the remote. One commenter said, don't give them any ideas. Another replied. And like, they are so right. And that is definitely the path that we're on.
So kind of a tangent, but like the NBA playoffs are going on right now. That's my favorite sport. I love watching basketball. But I've watched less of it this year than I think I have in a long time because I've noticed like time for the ads is just it's overwhelming. There's so many ad breaks and the ad breaks are longer than they've ever been. But we were sold a while back that teams are going to put advertisements on their jerseys and that was going to kind of mitigate that. But they did that and added ad time to everything. So the ads are getting longer. If you're watching the game, you have to see each team is sponsored by X. Like that's in soccer, that's been going on for years and years and years, NASCAR forever, but it's slowly being added to the major three sports. And the Los Angeles Clippers are building a multi-billion-dollar stadium where in the stadium you will be monitored. There's a fan row where you will be monitored and you will be prompted to stand and cheer. And if you don't do it, you won't be allowed to purchase tickets in that area ever again. You're going to pay exorbitant prices. I
Oh
have no idea how
my
much the ticket prices are going to be for this
dear.
in LA prime real estate, multi-billion-dollar stadium. But you're paying for the privilege of watching the game and also being monitored while you do it. And again, it's another at what point do we just opt out? How much more valuable is it? How much entertainment is worth being spied on all the time?
That doesn't sound like a real thing, Deon. I think you dreamed.
You wish.
It doesn't. But the owner of the Clippers is a Microsoft guy or a former Microsoft guy. So I mean, it checks out.
As much as the printer article enraged me, just because, again, you paid for it and now you're being thwarted because you're not continuing to pay. Ridiculous. But I wanted to go back to personal pricing because it kind of struck a chord. So come on this journey with me because I promise I'll bring it back around. So I did the Best of the Left episode on negative partisanship. And one of the things that was talking about was kind of a shared reality and how because of streaming and all of these forms of entertainment and how robust now the industry is, there's no longer a shared reality where people would sit down and watch an hour of TV and every household in America was watching the same thing. I kind of made this connection with personalized ads, thinking that it also is now isolating us further. Like we're in this hyper individualized country where now the advertisements that you're being served are not the same. They're different depending on your data, what you like, whatever. And then there's a disconnect because I was sitting there and the first thing that I thought is, YouTube has an algorithm that kind of leads you down right-wing media. What does their advertisement look like? And when you can't see what people are being advertised, it does draw like some questions, right? So someone who is on the right, maybe thoroughly into conspiracy theories, maybe they get advertised for ammo more, guns, protective wear. And I think that kind of personalized ads also gives way to thoughts and feelings that people might already be having. Like, if you already feel under threat and then your advertisements are for protective gear, wouldn't that just heighten you? So I feel like we're kind of going through this weird, I like the term that Naomi Klein used of the mirror world, because I feel like we're in the mirror world and it's just getting even more distorted in the experiences that all of us are having because we don't know and because they're like individualized. Like, I don't know what Amanda's experience on the internet is. I don't know what advertisements are coming up for her. And I mean, I don't want to act like we're helpless. Of course, we can do systemic things. But I do feel like I can't know that there's a problem with how Amanda is being targeted if I can't see what she can see. It just like adds layers.
Speaking of the mirror world, I was just going to talk about Tesla, but now like the mirror world is a perfect transition to Elon Musk, right? Because he went from clean energy crusader and electric car, forerunner to right-wing troll. So one of the examples from these articles is like there's just a couple subtle mentions. One of the first articles we talked about just says, want to quote unlock your Tesla's full battery life, question mark. And you're like, how is it that a battery life is not just what it is? But no, in 2016, that cost an extra $3,250. And then this article says in 2017, just 1 year later, when Hurricane Irma threatened Florida, the company pushed an update that temporarily increased battery life for owners for vehicles within reach of the storm. Tesla was praised at the time, but people like the critics being talked about in the article saw the event as an example of the power that tech companies have over customers. The car maker simply lifted an arbitrary software restriction on a physical battery that was otherwise used to create two different price points for consumers. And so they say, like, yeah, this can all work out great if you have a benevolent dictator. But what happens if they decide to turn the screws on you and increase the prices and your car stops working or whatever? And like Elon Musk's transition over the last 5 years is, all the evidence you need that, yeah, you should definitely be worried about the power that a corporation has over you because of how they may decide to act in the future. But I have a special side note, little bonus anger for everyone, just in case there wasn't enough. I read that and was like, well, those references were from 2016 and 2017. Surely they're not still doing that. They probably like got called out for it and are like, okay, we won't do that. Nope. May 6th, 2024, it was like 10 days ago, bought a Model Y, Tesla may charge you to use the battery's full range. Quote from within, when asked why the company would not just unlock this for owners for free, Musk replied, quote, we have to pay the bills somehow.
You've got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
Oh,
He didn't have any other
because
ideas.
he's driven the company into the ground. Yeah.
While simultaneously trying to get a $55 billion pay package.
Oh, fair point. Fair point. The article also continued, I think this is a Fortune magazine, said that Mercedes, it's like, hey, Tesla's not the only one doing this. Mercedes in 2022 instituted a charge of $1,200 per year for faster acceleration in its electric vehicles. That same year, BMW began charging South Korean customers $18 a month for heated seats, $10 a month for a heated steering wheel, and, pause for effect, $8 per month for high beam assist headlights, a driver safety feature.
What the fuck? How is any of this legal? How is any of this legal? There have to be laws on the books that could apply to these scenarios. I cannot.
Well,
That's
is
all.
this a good
I
plug
cannot.
that if you haven't listened to our antitrust best of the left episode, you definitely should, because there's a lot of effort going towards trying to use laws on the books already to kind of hold these companies to account. But because we've gone so long without doing it, there's not a lot of
Right.
context and there's not a lot of reference points that the FTC and stuff can use.
Case law.
I think my favorite sentence from one of these articles, I think it must have been the printer cartridge article, is just someone else reacting to the same situation saying, it just feels so manipulative. I guess this is our future where your printer ink spies on you. It's bleak. It's like, it's bleak, period. That's it.
Well, and with Tesla, I do know someone who owns a Tesla, and we were advertised as if this was a self-driving car. I didn't realize that you have to pay for an upgrade and then subscribe to something in order to get that feature, which
Mhm.
I honestly am going to say I am way more understanding than the battery life. Like the battery life to me, that is something that's very essential to the car operating correctly. The self-driving, it's just an added bonus. And I didn't understand why my friend didn't opt for it, but I also am not going to spend money on a Tesla. So if I was, maybe I'd indulge in that thinking, well, I got a Tesla for a reason. But companies like Tesla are going to continue to find these ways because, like, again, capital is going to capital. They've made a bunch of money and now they're figuring out how to maximize that. And apparently restricting battery life is one of a big ways. Because, I mean, I imagine if I went off the deep end and decided to get a Tesla, one, send help, but two, like, I'd probably have to pay for the extra battery life because I do travel further distances and go back home a lot. So I feel like I would be the customer who ends up falling into the pit of having to pay for it. Teslas aren't known as cheap cars. You're already making an investment. Why do I have to further invest just to have it, at the maximum capabilities? And this isn't like there have always been tiers of cars based on safety features or luxury. I think as I'm talking, I'm, like, justifying the tiered because if it's a luxury, leather seats, like, that's understandable. Okay, charge more. But again, battery life, that's just a very simple function of a car.
If you buy leather seats, you own the leather seats. If you buy the Tesla, you have the battery. The
Mhm.
battery is in the vehicle. They're not charging you for some service member to come out and put a new pack on it. No, it's just to access stuff that's already in the vehicle. Like
Mhm.
heated seats, they're already in the vehicle. Like the headlamps, they're already in the vehicle. You're just paying for access to something you already bought. And that's a whole new level. And I guess bright side is GM will be making electric cars because you can't do that with a gas tank. So they will be using this as a model and a reason to, like, well, at least we can charge a subscription price for how far people can drive.
As you were saying that, Deon, I just started thinking about how it's sort of a rental market. It's like a
Yeah.
mass rental market, but in a screwed up way because you can't go and rent something like, if you're renting a tool from a tool rental library, you have it in your hands, you are in control of it. But in this case, there's always a tether, and somebody else that you can't see and you don't know has the power to turn the utility of the thing that you just rented on and off at any time and control how effective it is and how you can use it. And so that's like turning the idea of renting and not, renting instead of owning on its head and making it more miserable. And so why would you bother? I mean, I was thinking about they mentioned Microsoft Word subscriptions. I have had a Microsoft Word subscription for like 7 years because when I got a new computer at some point, my old software wasn't going to transfer over. I have paid them, at least 4 times the value of the software by now, but I can't get rid of it because I actually need Microsoft Word. I'm probably gonna pay it for a long, long time to come, and they control my access to something that is very ubiquitous in the working world or in just the world in general now in our digital age, and I'm just paying them like $7 a month or something to be able to access it, and it could technically get turned off at any time. I mean, that's a bizarre world to live in.
I feel like this show has been a bit of a downer. And so I definitely wanted to try to end us on a high note. And luckily, as is so often the case, the cause of all of our problems is also the solution. So Wall Street Journal writes about corporate America knows we're miserable. Is a toilet bomb the answer? Across the consumer product sector, the giant companies that study us in hopes of unearthing insights that can help them sell more potato chips, laundry detergent, and lipstick have reached a conclusion that economists and pollsters have also found. We are unhappy, squeezed by inflation, troubled by global conflicts, and worried about an acrimonious presidential campaign season. And to that point, in January, Procter & Gamble declared romance and desire to be its scent of the year, which is a thing I didn't know was a thing.
I'm so mad you made us read this article.
And the product line is intended to offer a sensory reminder of the importance of human connection, the company said, which is as perfect as I can imagine the corporate response to the epidemic of human unhappiness and loneliness being. But to move on to the toilet bomb, Clorox thinks it can help with a new toilet bomb, a tablet of pre-dosed cleanser that foams and fizzes in the toilet bowl and releases a pleasant scent. Quote, people are looking for a spark of fun and joy as part of what Clorox calls a customer obsessed approach. Staffers started using artificial intelligence tools last year to scan digital media for new ideas, which have shown that for the average person, the world feels like one giant dirty toilet, like one from a horror film, just like constantly overflowing with piss and shit. But on the other hand, people seem to really get off on those ASMR videos with fizzy sounds and the like. And so their answer is the foaming toilet bomb going on sale nationwide next month. I made up some of that quote. They didn't talk about horror movie toilets, but that is how people feel. And this is their actual answer to it.
Let's buy the toilet bombs, go to the Clorox building, and just throw them at the building. What do you think?
That sounds like a
Getting
conservative
few people?
protest
I
where
know.
we end up
We buy
buying the
I know,
product.
I know.
We'll show them.
Well, so all of this was gross and garbage, and I'm mad that I looked at it and it's now in my brain. But the line that really put me over the edge was, quote, "We think consumers will continue to feel better throughout the year," Chief Executive Raymond LaGuardia said in February on a conference call with analysts. What gives you that impression? Like, I'm just super curious. Like, what would make you think that as 2024 goes on, we're all gonna feel better? Is it the toilet bombs? You think they're gonna help so much?
And related to that quote, he's talking about how the company is betting that consumers will start to emerge from their malaise and reach for more snacks. And I was like, wait a second. Shouldn't you
No.
be reaching for snacks when you're in a malaise? Or are we not talking about the same malaise?
I had the same thought, yeah. When I'm in malaise, I want lots of snacks.
Reading this, I was thinking like maybe the CEO is a moron and whatever, but there's someone in the marketing department that is really sharp that just got this out in the universe for us to be talking about, because there's no way they thought this was a solution to anybody's problems. There's no way they thought eating more snacks or putting a fizzy smell good in your toilet is going to make anybody feel better. But us talking about it, maybe we'll get out there and it's like that viral negative attention marketing that companies are really good at doing, because advertising is the only thing that matters to them. More attention, more attention, more attention. Because if anyone really did think this is a solution to our problems, they shouldn't run a company, right?
Yeah, you might be onto something. So as we were just talking there for a second, I realized I had the answer to Amanda's question, because the people running these corporations are in the mirror universe. So when the CEO of PepsiCo or whoever says, we feel that people will be feeling better as the year goes on and therefore eating more snacks, what they mean is people will be feeling better about eating snacks because they'll be feeling worse about the world.
Oh, okay.
And now everything makes sense.
Kinda like Trump is good for NBC, but
Yeah,
not for the country, like that line, yeah.
Exactly like that line. Except it was CBS, but
Mhm.
the
It was
point stands.
CBS, yeah. Mhm. Okay. I mean, it's the most dystopian shit I've read in a long time. Like, it sounds like something out of a satirical dystopian novel.
I think that all of us have very different bathroom habits. Like, I often am eating snacks in the bathroom thinking, how could this be even better? Oh, wait, foam. Like, I think we're underselling. Am I alone?
How could I spark some fun and joy right now?
Sold.
So normally at about this time, I would be asking us if we've solved it, but it turns out we didn't have to solve it because the solution is here at the end of the article. The inventor of happy coffee said to themselves, people are not all that happy. Coffee makes people happy. What if happy made their coffee?
What?
And then he co-founded Happy Coffee with the actor Robert Downey Jr. and launched the line of coffee pods, ground and instant coffee, emblazoned with uplifting messages like, "You've got this," and "Goodbye, grumpy pants."
Shut up.
And then the founder and Robert Downey Jr. discussed emotionally aware approaches to reflect the fact that, quote, not everybody is happy all the time. And so the coffee's packaging includes the number for a helpline operated by the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which was given an equity stake in the brand. Together, the packaging proclaims, we can make things better. So
I didn't get that far in the article. I'm really glad that I didn't, but now I'm really angry.
Why? Like, we're gonna buy our way out of all of this shitty things. Like, no pun
Together.
intended, because of the Clorox phone.
This is what enshittification means. Oh, Erin, you nailed it. This is what it really means. The Clorox toilet bomb is enshittification. That is like the embodiment of it.
I think we solved it.
Yeah, that's
I'm very
that's it.
feeling very optimistic.
Yeah, we solved it over and over again is what we just did. So if you have any thoughts or comments on this, which like, I don't know that there's anything to add, but maybe, send us a voicemail or leave us a text at 202-999-3991 or send me an email to j@bestofleft.com. Thanks for listening. Go home and toilet bomb your way to happiness.